Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. This week's show, I've got a few questions. This week's show is being recorded on Sunday. Today I'm playing at church. I just released a cover this morning of one of the songs we're playing at church. It's been a busy weekend. I was hoping to do this so I would premiere this on Sunday morning. That didn't happen. Really busy time. It's been busy with work and busy with play, the studio. The kit today is set up for a track I've been working on for KM Drums. Kelly asked me to play on 2 songs. I sent him one midweek, and this is the other track I'm working on. So today's setup is set up for what I just did for Kelly this morning. Take 15, Kelly, in case you're wondering. It's the last one I sent you. So, what the heck was that? I get all kinds of stuff on my shirts. People love my shirts. They're good for having splotches and stuff that's been left on and can't get out. My wife can't get out. Anyhow, you can tell appearance is a big deal to me. Okay, you can tell it's not a big deal to me. If it was a big deal to me, I would not be on camera at all, as you all would understand, okay? Big guys aren't what the camera calls for. It already puts 15 pounds on you when you get in front of the camera any day, you know what I mean? The reason I do this is because I love sharing my knowledge with others in the community. And before I get started with the questions today, my knowledge, just want to say something. This show is about my opinions, my ideas, my thoughts, but I never come off like I'm the authority on anything. Matter of fact, a lot of times I struggle to sit down the middle and say both sides of a story. Okay? So Ask Earl Anything is not about me saying I know everything. I had somebody write the last couple days and didn't like something I said on one of my Ask Earl Anythings. And basically probably didn't listen to both sides of the question, only listened to one side I was talking about, didn't hear the other side. Now, I can't make people watch videos and I can't make people be nice. And one of the things that's a problem in our world is people don't want to be nice anymore. I get that. So it goes with the territory having people not liking your videos or having comments where they're just so pointed, you're trying to figure it out. So usually when a friend points a video at me, I will ask deeper questions trying to figure out what they're getting at, what they didn't like or did like. But when somebody I don't know comes in, I'll basically say, like I said to this guy, pretty much, did you watch it all the way? Did you hear both sides of it? And thanks for watching. Okay? I appreciate people watching, taking time to watch the show, because this is a show that takes a little time to watch. But realize that it's just my thoughts, my opinions on things, and I'm not saying there's only one way to do things. And in most times, in most situations, I'm actually saying to everybody, look at it this side of it, and look at that side of it. Because there's 2 sides to everything. I'm able to basically say this is what my experience is, this is how I've approached it, but I'm not trying to tell you this is the only way to do it. And there are plenty of guys out there on the internet will tell you the right way to do something. Okay? I'm not telling you this is the right way or the only way. I'm telling you this is my way, and this is how I see things, and these are the different sides. So I hope you appreciate that in this show, because I'm not trying to come off as the ultimate authority, even though I'm asked questions that kind of bring that out sometimes. So let's start with the first question. Stamus T, I'm going to call him. Stamus T. I'm not going to try to butcher your name, Stamus. He said, hello there, sir. I was wondering how many cymbals you have and drum sets, and I believe you stacked the Pisces, but isn't it true I see anyway all cymbals you have to give? Alright, Stamus, interesting question. Drum kit wise, I really have 2 drum kits, and then I've got a kit that's a kind of a makeshift kit. My drum collection really starts with this kit. This is my Gretsch, Maple Gretsch kit, 1979, pre-USA custom. Baldwin Piano Company owned Gretsch at the time. It's got the 79 badge on on the toms. This has got the 80s badge because this 10 is from the 1980. It's 1980 version of a 10-inch tom. 8x10 came out in 1980 with the 5 lugs. I bought an 8x12, 9x13, 14x14, 16x16, 14x20 kick drum. That's my main kit. Snare drums are up. We can talk snare drums all day long. My other kit's the little maple Gretsch kit, which is a hybrid kit too, because that came through a series of trades with a friend. My friend Scott Hazen and I traded. At the time, I owned a Fibes kit in a brown pizza, I call it pizza table brown, because it had that marbled brown look to it. Fibes had put out in the late 70s. It was a 12x13, 9x13, 8x12, 9x13, 16x16, 14x22. It was fiberglass shells. Martin, CF Martin Company owned fiberglass owned Fibes at the time. It was making the fiberglass drums. My friend Pat O'Donnell bought the kit. We traded something. I ended up with a drum kit. So that was one of my drum kits that I traded for that little Gretsch kit. And then the little Gretsch kit went away one day, and I got a Noble Cooley kit out of it, which was Scott Hazen's. And then we traded back the Noble Cooley for the little Gretsch kit, so it's back in my hands. I've had this little Gretsch kit since the 90s, and then I lost it for a bit of time between, I guess it was 2014 to 2017. And then I got the little Gretsch kit back, which I do not plan on giving that away ever again and trading it again with Scott. There are certain people I trade instruments with. I trade drums and cymbals and snare drums and all that kind of stuff. Scott's one of them. We've had some long time trades. And those trades are a lot of fun, okay? It's nice to have people that you can kind of like, you try something and you say, hey, you got that, you don't want it anymore? I don't really want this anymore, let's switch. And then we switch and we see what happens. Now, you got to know who you're trading with. You got to know if the person's going to sell it out from under you, so you can't get it back. That's another friend of mine. But I have a couple friends that I've done these trades with, and they always work out. Scott Hazen's one of them, Ken Burton, Pat O'Donnell, you'll hear those names, and Alan Levine. Those are the 4 main guys that I've done trades and back and forths with. So that's my second kit. Now that kit's a hybrid. It's got a 1980s Gretsch bass drum, 14x18. It's got a 6.5 by 10-inch tom, double-headed, that was a concert tom that I converted to 2 heads. Got the edges beveled by Resurrection Drum down here in South Florida. It's got an 8x12 tom. That is a round badge Gretsch tom. I talked about this kit in a recent Tama video. Round badge Gretsch tom from the 60s that had a wrap on it when I bought it for 10 bucks in Jersey City State College back in 1979, 80, somewhere in that point of view. I gave it to my friend Scott. He took the wrap off. He got the little Gretsch bass drum and some other concert toms and stuff. And that's how I ended up with those back together. And then I eventually bought a 14x14 floor tom shell that had the hardware on it, but didn't have the rims on it. That was a Catalina maple. I bought that, but I think it was 2011-ish, 2010. And I put pearl die-cast rims on that and on the 10, and that completed the kit. And that little maple Gretsch kit's a great gigging kit. The 14x18 sounds like a 14x20 for sure. It's got a very deep, powerful sound to it. Just like the 20 sounds like a 22. My other kit is a concert tom kit. And I've got a whole set of fiberglass concert toms minus a 6 and a 12. So I've got an 8, 10, I've got an extra 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, all fiberglass concert toms. Standard concert tom sizes, meaning 5.5 by 8, 6.5 by 10, 9 by 13, 10 by 14, 12 by 15, 14 by 16. So those concert toms marry to a bass drum I picked up from Scott Hazen, who gave it to me, which was a Gretsch shell, and I put Ludwig hardware on it. And it's a 22 by 14 Gretsch shell with Ludwig hardware on it. I had a Ludwig bass drum at one point in time that was warped and out around in the 90s, and I took all the hardware off it, and then I got that drum and I put that on it. And when I got that drum, I also got a 16 by 16 floor tom Ludwig. that I eventually wrapped blue sparkle and put together with a club date kit I got from Alan Levine. So I've got like this, like, you look at my drum history, it goes from a Vistalite kit that I started with, this being my main kit in '79 I've never gotten rid of, and have no plans on doing anything with this kit. This is going to be left to one of my kids at some point, or my grandkids. Whoever's the drummer in the family is going to get this kit. And hopefully they'll cherish it, you know. And Poppy basically took care of it, hopefully. But this kit's my main kit. As far as cymbals go, I have 52 cymbals actively. Paistes, Zildjians, Sabians. I've got videos about all my cymbals on YouTube. I have a Zildjian video, I have a Sabian video, and I've got a Paiste video. The only recent additions to the Paiste video that's not there from that video is the 2002 Thin Crash 16-inch and the 22-inch Big Beat Ride right here, and a pair of 15-inch Giant Beat hats. Okay, everything else in that Paiste video I still pretty much have, except for this one Swish cymbal that I sold. Oh yeah, and I forgot about the 2002 China Type, which was part of a trade for a 17-inch Thin Crash Zildjian that was owned by Ken Burton and went to my good friend Steve Dupree. So we traded too. I guess Steve's in the trade. We don't trade as much, but we traded. But anyhow, Stamus, that's cymbals and drums. I got a lot of cymbals, a lot of drums. I guess another Paiste that I added was a flat ride, and it's 18-inch flat ride. I have that. So I've got a lot of different cymbals and drums, and you'll see me feature them in my videos. For those of you who watch my drum videos, I want to say this. I put the description of the drums in the video description. I stole that from Jeremy at Little Drummer Channel. And I try to put some of my equipment in there too, and how I'm miking things a little bit, so you can look at it if you need to know what I put in a video. And if you don't think it's right, because it might not be, every once in a while I make a mistake, you can feel free to challenge me, and I'll correct it if I made a mistake. Okay? Anyhow, great question, Stamus. Great question. All right. Let's see if Siri's going to let me in. Okay, here we go. Second question is actually a shout out. I want to triple shout out this to Michael Perry. Michael Perry saw my Tama classic hardware video. Now, I don't think Michael Perry approved of me having the classic hardware. I don't think he even likes the classic hardware, because he had an old Ludwig bass, flat bass stand, and he saw I was like going for it, and he didn't know what I was going for, because he just bought some really nice Tama stuff apparently, and a new kit. And he has all these hardware, this heavy hardware. Now, I've got plenty of heavy hardware. My hardware's not... I've never had a match set till that Tama set. That Tama set of hardware is like the first match set I've had since my days of having all Ludwig hardware back on my first kit. With this kit, I originally bought Pearl hardware. I had 4 cymbal stands, 2 booms, 2 straights. I bought a Slingerland hi-hat stand that fell apart. It was a piece of junk. Literal piece of junk. The bass drum pedals were never the same as Gretsch. I had a Gretsch floating action, but that's a long story too. But I've been through hi-hat pedals. The only time I came close to having a set of hardware was in the early 80s. When I first got married, I had some Yamaha hardware. I had a Yamaha seat, 7,000 seat, and two 7,000 boom stands and a 7,000 hi-hat stand, which I kept for years. And I put that together. I put the hi-hat stand together with the good old club date kit I gave to a church. So I've been through a ton of hi-hat stands. Matter of fact, I've got more hi-hat stands I don't know what to do with right now. My wife even bought me one for Christmas. She heard me talking about Tama hardware and she bought me a hi-hat stand. I wanted the vintage classic vintage hardware. Anyhow, this is a long way to shout out to Michael Perry, but Michael Perry sent me this flat bass stand. Thank you again, Michael Perry, for the flat bass stand. I didn't see if you saw it in my Tama video shout out, and I said thank you to you online, but I also want to say thank you to you in this video. Make sure I thank you for giving me those broken parts that weren't a complete stand, but he sent them to me in a box, and I thank you for taking the time to do that. I now got 2 more stands, flat bass stands, out of the deal. So I am I don't know how many cymbal stands I actually have. I probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or so with all the kits. And I've got to have at least 5 hi-hat stands. I got a DW, a Pearl, a Tama, 2 Tamas now, another Pearl. I got a couple vintage Ludwigs that I will not be using. I'm going to have to sell one of these days. They are flat bass stands. They're not fun to play. That Tama one, that flat bass Tama, new classic hardware, is excellent to play. Makes no noise. It's nice and easy. Really, really nice hardware. Really nice hardware. And I wanted to shout that out to Michael Perry. So, was there a question with this too? I'm looking at it just to make sure, because he did get the answer to that. All right. The next question comes from 2112 Drums. In 2112 Drums, this was on my last show, I believe. He said, excellent show. Questions. I recently picked up a 1920s Ludwig 30-inch bass drum. This is the largest bass drum I've ever owned. It is also the oldest drum. What is the oldest drum you've ever owned, and what is the biggest drum you've ever owned? That's a great question. Oldest drum. I think the oldest drum for me would probably be early Ludwig Superphonic and Acrolite, and that Club Day kit. That Club Day kit was 1964 or 65. I've almost bought a couple different drums at different points in time, but those are the ones that come to mind as far as drums that were in that 60s era. You know, and I've had a few. I've had the Club Day kit, 8x12, you know, it was 8x12, 14x20, and a Pioneer snare. I had a 5x14 Pioneer snare, 6 lug. Sounded great, by the way. Very nice drum. Wouldn't go out and buy one, but sounded great. My Club Day kit was the mahogany poplar shells, so it was really a nice kit. And then I added that floor tom I got from Scott Hayes and put the blue sparkle on it. Love that kit. You know, that's all I'll say about it. So that was probably one of the oldest things I had. I also had an Acrolite from that period, and I've also had a 5x14 Superphonic from that period at one point in time. I've had 25 snare drums, give or take. And, you know, I also got a round badge Gretsch from that period too, with the funky lightning throw off on the side. It's not centered, it's off to the side, which a lot of guys hate that throw off because it does pop sometimes, but I still have that. So I don't know what year that is. I think they're all in the 60s kind of thing. So my oldest drums are in the 60s. I don't think I've had anything in the 50s. I've probably had some cymbals close to the early 60s, late 50s a few times. Matter of fact, I know I've had some cymbals that are older than the drums. I had a pair of Istanbul Ks that Scott Hazen has. Beautiful cymbals. I would just destroy them, but he knew how to play them. So he got them. As far as biggest bass drum for me is 14x24. I actually had a Marine Pearl 14x24 kick drum. I believe those were 70s Ludwig drums. I actually had another Club Day, not a Club Day kit. It was was it a Jazzette kit? It was a 14x20, 8x12, 14x14. I've had a couple kits in that early 60s time. But that 24-inch bass drum was either late 60s, early 70s Ludwig. I mean, it sounded awesome. I had a 9x13 tom, a 10x14 tom, a 16x16 floor tom. And that came with I had a Pioneer snare for that drum too. And then I got that little 8x12, 14x14, 14x20 kick, who I gave that to a friend, and he sold it to a drummer named Pat Petrillo. I don't know if you've heard of Pat Petrillo, but he's a guy that bought this little Ludwig kit I had. Of course, I butchered that kit. I actually drilled a mount, tom mount in it and everything else. And I had some concert toms with that kit. It was my friend Billy McCabe's kit. And it had a 6, 8, 10, 12 concert tom, and I sold that to a guy who was trying to go for the Neil Peart thing. So, yeah, that was an interesting kit. Those are the drums, 2112. 14x24 is my biggest bass drum. Never had a desire to go higher than that. 26 doesn't do anything for me. 24 was tough to play, but it's a nice sounding drum. I almost bought a Gretsch 14x24 once too. It was this close to buying. It was like cheap too. Matter of fact, let me tell you how close I was to buying a 26 a couple years ago. I think this was probably about 3 years ago. I was in Charleston on business, and there's a little drum shop in Charleston. It's in Hanahan, I think that's the name of the little town. It's outside of Charleston. It's on Montague Street. No, it's not on Montague Street. It's on the main drag down there. I don't know what that street is, 17 or whatever. I can picture how to get there in my head, but I can't remember the names of the streets. This guy had a pearl fiberglass 14x26 for $100. And I went in there and I said, I want to buy this drum. How much to ship it to me? And he couldn't ship it using UPS. It was going to cost me $150 to ship a $100 drum. That's when I said, nah, forget about it. If I was gonna, it's going to cost me $250 for the drum. That's not worth it to me. But for $100, that was a really. It was orange. It was orange. That orange 70s pearl. It was so cool. Such a good drum, and it was fiberglass to boot. It was really cool. That would have gave me that bottom thing. I was the closest I came to buying one. Anyhow, thank you 2112. Next question comes from David BCG. David BCG. And he said, have you tried playing your second crash as a 22-inch paired with a 20-inch ride? I'm considering getting a 22-inch Meinl vintage crash ride with rivets to pair with a 20-inch and an 18-inch light crash from the same line. Would like your opinion. Let's say getting a smaller crash like an 16 or something below a 20. Great show. Well, thank you for the nice comment about the show. You know, I have played with the 22 as a crash. This 22 as a crash. It's a great crash. I mean, it's a nice ride, but it's a nice crash. It's not a one-trick. It's not a one-trick pony. It's not only a ride. A lot of times when you get 22-inch ride cymbals, they get in that 3,000 plus gram range. They're pingy, and you can't crash them. Okay, this is probably 23 and change, 2,300 grams and change. So it is a great crash ride, actually. Excellent crash ride. So I have used that as a crash occasionally. I forget what video it was in. I used that. I also used my Carope as a crash a couple times. And I used a 20-inch, a different 20-inch ride. Doesn't make me feel good when I do that, but I've done it. I have a really nice dry Peisty ride. It's a Dark Energy Mark I prototype that really has the kind of gad sound I really like, that dry gad sound once in a while. And you can pair them up with the bigger crashes. But 22 is usually a little big for a crash for me. 20 is about the size I go. I've got a few 20s now. I love my Giant B20 and I love my Peisty 505 20. I like 19-inch crashes. This is a Carope 19. I've got a couple 19-inch crashes. I've got an AAX 19-inch studio crash, which is again is a thin crash. Then I've got this Armand 18-inch. So I do usually start to go down from 20. Like if I have a 20, I usually go 18, 19, 17, 16, 15, 14. I've gotten as low as 14 for crash cymbals. They all have their own little thing. 16s are fast. It's a fast crash. This has got more of a dark, deep, bigger crash. This is really a dark crash. This has got a nice biting cut through, you know, but it gets out of the way. So it all depends on what you're looking for. You know what I mean? I like all size cymbals, and I've paired them up a lot of different ways. So I'm not opposed to it. You put rivets in it, that changes the vibe to it too. I did a video, one of my most popular drum cover videos is a video by the Zombies called Time of the Season. I recorded it in Studio B, which is over here. and I was actually setting the kit up for a recording session with the band, the Swigs, I was in at the time, and the drums were going to be in the booth. So I was trying to get a drum sound with, you know, 4 mics in the room, like 2 overheads, a kick and a snare, and I had my Big Noble Cooley kit with the 13-inch tom and the 16-inch. I don't have that kit anymore. I traded it for my little Gretsch kit again. But that day I was using the Crope, 22-inch Crope, the 19-inch Crope over here, and I had a 21-inch Istanbul with a rivet in it, which sounded really cool, and I used it for that recording session, the whole session, and I wished I hadn't. It was a nice effect on one song, because that time of the season has this kind of like, it's the time of the season to love me. It kind of hangs there. Doom, doom, boom, 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 boom. You know, that's the time of the season groove. That's kind of the groove I was doing. To the time of the season thing, but I used that sizzle, and it just was all over everything. And after we did our demo, I had sizzle cymbal and everything, and I don't think I've used a sizzle cymbal as a crash since that. You know, every once in a while I pull that out for a jazz thing, but not for a crash usually. I don't usually use a sizzle cymbal for a crash. So, but you may like it. It may be your thing. You know, it'd probably be a fun ride, too. All right. And again, remember, this is just my thoughts on it. You may love it. And if you love it, that's all that matters. You know. I got one more question from you, David BCG. And it came on a Rob Nienhaus response. I will say this. My last Ask Earl Anything, where I talked about E-drums, really got some people's nerves going. You know, some people were not sure what to do with that, me going and talking about E-drums, you know what I mean? Michael Perry being one of them. I hope you make it to this point, Michael. Michael listened to one of my videos and didn't like the sound of my toms or something. And he even asked me, he's the one who asked me the question about why I wouldn't go to E-drums, you know what I mean? That's what spurred that whole discussion about it. I don't know. You know, guys love E-drums. I get it. I'm just not at that season of life where I need to use E-drums. So this was on the E-drum response from Rob. And David said, I have another question for you. What would be a versatile 4-piece kit to play in many styles? I'm aiming at modern worship music down the road. So I guess mainly pop, rock, blues, Latin, country. I tend to believe that a 20-12-14 would be great. But I'm quite a fan of Benny Gribb's music and sound. He plays a 20-10-16. I used to play a 22-10-14-16, which is a rare configuration. Have you ever tried this configuration? Well, the answer to the question, David, is this. This kit, without this tom, is that configuration. I have played 10-14-16. I have done 10-16. I've done 12-14. One of my favorites is 12-16. I've done 13-16. I've done 10-13-16. I've done 8-10-14, 8-10-16. I've done 8-10-12, 14-16. I've done 10-12, 13, 14, 16. And the only thing I haven't done is an 18 because I don't have one. If I had an 18, I'd have an 18 in here once in a while. I love messing with drums. I love having drums all over the place. And I have played 4-piece kits. 4-piece is my favorite drum kits, or 4-piece drums. My second favorite kit, you know, that I play is a 5-piece kit. So normally it's either 5 or 4. Occasionally I'll add an extra tom. One of my favorite new add-on toms is to have 2 floor toms, which I bought this kit to have 2 floor toms, a la Danny Serafin, my favorite drummer from Chicago, my main influence as a child. Of course, I bought a 10-inch tom to do the Jeff Porcaro thing, 10, 12, 13, 14. That was Jeff's kind of main gigging kit. He'd throw a 16 in there once in a while. And of course, the GAD kit had the 8-10, I mean 10-12, 14-16, or 10-12, 13-14 on a stand. In the early days, it was really shallow toms. And then he started messing around. It'd be 10-12, you know, 15-16, because he had all kinds of size drums. The funny thing, you look at the pictures of GAD and his traditional 10-12, for a long time it was always 10-12, 10-12 on the top. And these two drums could be 14-16 or 15-16 or 13-14, depending on what video you were watching them in. You always had a 5x14 Superphonic. That was GAD's thing back in the day. Now he's got his signature snare drum, and today you'll see him with a 20 or a 22. Depends on what the gig is. Rarely will you see him with an 18, but he likes 20s. Matter of fact, a lot of guys like 20-inch kick drums. 20-inch kick drums sound really good. But yeah, I mean, I try everything. There's not a configuration of the drums I have that I haven't tried. You know, I've put the big tom here and the smaller tom there. I've done that, flipping it around, Kenny Aronoff style. I've done all that stuff. I love messing with drums and finding different ways to play it. I haven't got as crazy as taking all... The one thing you don't see in my videos, I hope you all notice this, if you go through all my videos, I will pick kits for my video. But the one thing I won't do is set everything up under the sun around me that I own. There are guys out there in YouTube land that have huge kits from the 70s. And they've got 6, 7, 8 toms, rototoms, wind chimes. I mean, I had all that stuff. I got 3 rototoms. I've got a set of concert toms. I've got double-headed toms. They'll take everything. They'll put all their bass drums together, and they'll have it all wrapped around them. I am not Mike Mangini. I'm not Mike Mangini from Dream Theater. I'm not going to play that way. So having that much stuff around me just is annoying to me. And guys that have that much stuff around them tend to try to play all that stuff around them, which to me is not, it defeats the purpose of some of these covers, because some of these covers are very minimalistic. So play a minimalistic kit if you're playing that type of a cover. Now, a lot of guys don't like switching their kits up. I get it. But I filled in for a gig down here once, and the drummer, I remember I showed up for the gig. It was with the little Gretsch kid, and it was 18, 12, 14, snare drum, 2, maybe 3 cymbals. I like to use 3 cymbals. Anyhow, the band leader said to me, "Oh wow, you're not taking up any space at all." Their normal drummer would come with a Pearl. He had a Pearl with a 24-inch bass drum, deep power toms. I think he had 6 toms. He had wind chimes and at least 8 or 9, 10 cymbals. He used to bring that to every gig. And this was an older group. These guys were all older. And I said, man, I can't carry it anymore. It's going to break my back. You know, it's lovely to have in your studio to set up once in a while. But in actuality, when it comes to doing gigs and getting in and out, that's what I want to do. I've played too many gigs in my lifetime. I want to get in. I want to get out. I don't want to be carrying a ton of hardware. I don't want to be carrying a lot of drums. I want to carry what I need for the gig. So I try to do that in my drum covers. That's another one of those things I try to do. Anyhow, David, I hope that answered your question. Had a lot of fun on this Ask Earl Anything. I just was honest about stuff. Your questions make the show. I got more questions. This show will come out sometime, maybe at a different time. I'm not putting Ask Earl Anything out on Fridays anymore. I put it out whenever I want to put it out. So sometime during this week I made it, I will actually put this show out. But I had a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. Your questions make the show, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye.